Okay, so a vampire, a werewolf, and a priest walk into a bar. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk a little Joe Abercrombie because, guys, for the first time in a long time, we have a new Joe Abercrombie book. This, of course, is The Devils, the first in a new planned trilogy. And I am very, very excited to talk about this, guys, because I read this about 6 months ago. Thought I'd hold the review until more of you had an opportunity to actually read it. So I want to thank both Tor and Gallant, who both sent me review copies in exchange for an honest review. And an honest review is what you're going to get here today, regardless of what some people have told you. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, look, as a First Law mega fan, obviously, I had very, very high expectations for this book. So did it meet them? For me, for the most part, yes. We're going to kind of talk about why. But, it's not a perfect book, but I don't think there really is such a thing. So, guys, let's begin like usual. Let's talk about what is this book about. Well, plague and famine stalk the land. Monsters lurk in every shadow, and elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. But one thing is for certain, the elves will come again, and they will get everyone. Only the darkest paths lead toward the light, and a path the righteous will not dare tread. And holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city, where he is certain a commendation and grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. The mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from all in order to achieve its righteous ends. And so deep beneath the sacred splendor of the celestial palace lies the secret chapel of the Holy Expediency. For its congregation of convicted monsters, there are no sins that have not been committed, no lines that will not be crossed, and no mission that cannot be turned into a disastrous bloodbath. When you're headed through hell, you need the devils at your side. That's very vague, guys. It very, very much is, because there's so much more going on in this book, and we're going to talk about those beginning like always, with what makes it good or bad. I'm going to begin with the good here. Now, look, with Joe, it's always about the characters, right? That's no different here. I think if you've read First Law, you know the strength lies in the character. When people ask, what's so great about the First Law? What do you always hear back? It's the characters. I think here, you're going to be safe with that. I tell people, don't go into this expecting the First Law, but expect that kind of character work, because it's going to be kind of similar here. The dialogue is going to be just as good as it is in the First Law, I do think. But you have 8 central characters here, and I feel like they're all very different. They all have that one thing that makes them different from the other, something that's unique, some kind of unique ability or talent or curse, question mark. I think there are several things here that make these characters very, very different. You don't ever get any of confused, because you know, okay, this can do this can do that, they can do that. Now, some are as developed as well as others, but I think when this is book 1 of a planned trilogy, you might have some time for some of those other characters to shine. Because I think back to the First Law, and I'm like, it had 5 main POV characters. They didn't all get as much development as the other ones did. And with this, I feel like there's going to be room for these characters all to grow. And I think it's very much that Suicide Squad method of, hey, these are a bunch of outcasts, I guess you would say. They're being forced to work together. Now, they don't have a bomb in their neck like Suicide Squad, but they have something that's kind of keeping them too honest, I guess you'd say, even though these characters are very, very dishonest, I think. When you're dealing with a world like this, I think you're going to have characters that are going to always be gray. That's kind of where Joe does, his forte is definitely with characters like that. But while they hate it, they, kind of reluctantly become affectionate, or maybe kind of one another over the course of the story. And I think that's it, because I love that it isn't just human characters here. We're playing with a lot of different things. You got Lycans, you got vampires, you got necromancer. Well, necromancer's still kind of human-ish, but I think what this world is, what really makes it stand out to me is I usually don't like alt history. That's usually something like, I'm not really cool with that. But with this, I kind of like, because he's kind of approaching it as where this is our world, and you kind of imagine it with like the classical cities never fell. Like we got Troy and things like that here. And I love that. So it's kind of like our world, but somewhat like fever dreamish, because there are really, really just nightmare things. It's going to be a lot more grim and gritty, I think, than our world would be. But because we got elves. Elves were just like the pure evil in this world. They're like basically they eat people. So it's just their hell beast, I think, which is a very different take, I think, that I've ever seen on elves before. But the dialogue in this, obviously, it's going to make you laugh a lot. I think that's what Joe does really great. Is he can write this stuff that is completely dark and disturbing and messed up and violent, but you're laughing the whole time. And I think he's just got that black humor down to a T, and that's going to be no different here. But I will say this is pretty action-heavy for a Joe Abercrombie book. I don't think his books have ever been devoid of action, but they've been much fewer and far between than this book does. This book is just a mile a minute with the action sequences. I was actually surprised. I think there's good 4, maybe 5 giant set pieces in this that just really surprised me a little bit. Now, Joe, thankfully, he writes action very, very good. It's just I was not expecting to have this many actions. Like the last action sequence, God, it's like 100 pages long. It was surprising to me that Joe really went all in on something like that. But it does make it feel a little different. It is still very much a character book, but you have a lot more action, I think, than you usually would in this. And some are better than others. We'll get into that, obviously. But it's really good. But those uncomfortable moments are still there. And I think if you've read the first law, you might know what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about the violence. I'm talking about some of the adult wrestling time. Let's put it that way. Those things are still here. It is still make you very uncomfortable in some regards, and it'll make you laugh like crazy at other times. I know a lot of people really love the audiobooks. Stephen Pacey, I think his name is. He's the one who does the audiobooks for all Joe Abercrombie books, and apparently he is very good at acting out those scenes. So you guys have to give me some feedback on how that did work out with this book. But I think it's different enough from First Law that you're not going to be comparing the whole thing. You're not going to be like, oh, this character's like Giselle. Oh, this character's like Glocta. These characters feel completely different, and I never once am comparing them to characters in the First Law because it doesn't feel like the same world, because obviously it taking place in our world with a little bit of a different spin on history. I think that's going to make it where you don't compare it to Adjoa, the First Law, the whole time. I think you'll really think that there's a lot more going on than a different kind of way than what happened in the First Law. But I think with this, what really surprised me is a book like this, and it has so many good themes of redemption and faith and found family that it really hit a lot harder than you would expect in a book like this. Now, Joe was very good at obviously making you care about his characters, but I didn't expect that this much growth in the first book, especially with this group of 8 main characters, being able to find room on the page to make you care about them that much this early. But of course, Joe, that's his strength, his character work. And it's no different here. Now, again, I always like to say it doesn't really necessarily make it bad. These are some things I think that might not work for you. There may be some things that I struggle with a little bit. But if you're going to look at some things that maybe weren't so good, is I see a lot of criticism in people who've read already saying that it's just trying to be too funny. Now, I will say it is a little bit more banter in this one, I think, than the First Law, where it made it really count. So I think that there can be some of that. The humor can sometimes be kind of cartoonish, and what I mean by that, cartoonish is like in a situation it's like, I don't know if you'd be cracking jokes, you'd be cracking Marvel jokes while this is going on. You might get a little bit of that. But for me, it's like if I'm criticizing this at all, it would just be that maybe some of the jokes seem like they repeated. Somebody's like, yeah, it was funny the first time. I didn't know if we need to go to it a second or a third time even. But there are several times where, I'm laughing, I'm giggling, I'm having a good time because I like these characters already, that I think that it doesn't really bother me that much. But that has been a constant criticism, is that maybe he's trying to be too funny in sometimes, and that will kind of help you or keep you from getting really invested in the grim reality that it is this world. I can definitely see it as a criticism. I think my biggest criticism would be the splitting the group up. Now, look, you've got 8 main characters. It's going to be really hard to give them all time when they're all together. And you're going to be just going all over the place with the dialogue. He said, she said, he said, she said. You're going to get that a lot, I think. So I understood he was going to have to split them up, maybe take a different quest. What I didn't like was he took all 8 characters and he split them into 4 groups of 2. That was too much. It was too much because I think where Joe really, really just flies in his stories is the way that the characters talk to each other. And when you took them out of a group setting and you put them just one-on-ones, it kind of took a little bit of it. Now, I appreciate the character work he did with it. Like, I think, for example, Brother Diaz and Viga, I loved when it was just the 2 of them. It was phenomenal. It was terrific. Other groups, not so much. And I won't get into which ones really they were, because I want to let you experience some of this for yourself. But getting these characters kind of divided up like that, you kind of just find yourself saying, well, I just kind of want the group to get back together. You are kind of waiting for the group to get back together. Now, I'll say when it does happen, it's very rewarding. But that part, I would say it's not as long. I've heard some people say it's like the most of the book. I don't think so. It didn't feel like that to me. Again, I read it 6 months ago, and it was a page turner, obviously. But I never once felt like, oh, this is going on too long. But I was finding myself being like, all right, I'm ready for the group to get back together here, get the band back together. I think this is also going to get some of the criticism that The Blade itself got, where it's like, oh, this is nothing but character introduction. There's no real plot. You're going to get that, I think, here, because they have this plot is basically, we've got this very important person, and we've got to get them to this very important place. And that's it. That's the plot. It does take a little bit of a shift in the part 4, I don't want to call it the fourth act, but part 4 of the book. There's 4 parts overall. It does take a little bit of a shift there, but yeah, that's really pretty much it. And I think, again, going back to the Blade itself, where a lot of people are like that, and I'm like, just keep going. I think, again, that just might be the way that Joe paces his stories. Is this book is, okay, I'm going to get you really familiar with the characters first, and then we're going to get really, really deep into the politics, into the world, and everything that's going on behind the scenes, I think. But it taking all the way until part 4 of the book to actually start to move the story forward a little bit. I think that might be some people saying, did you just do this to increase the page count? Is this just to make the book a little longer? I could see that, but the biggest thing, guys, as always with a Joe Abercrombie book, major trigger warnings for violence and bad language. If you don't like those things, I don't know if Joe's the author for you. I don't think it's going to chase you off completely, but if you want no violence, you want no bad language, and you want no relationships, sexual relationships, I think maybe Joe's probably not going to be the author for you, but it has all those things. Again, so if you've read First Law, I think it'll be fine. It doesn't go as graphic as like Jay Kristoff does with something like that, but it's definitely going to have he's going to show you how the sausage gets made when it comes to the violence. Like, I think some of the biggest scenes are very, very brutal, but they're so awesome, guys. They're just so awesome. And yeah, lots of bad language, lots and lots of bad language. So why should you read it? Now, obviously, if you're a First Law fan, why are you even asking this? Read it immediately, and you're probably going to. You probably already read it before you're here, and I get that. If you love the gritty, grim, adult fantasy setting, hellish setting, I think this is going to be exactly what you're looking for. I mean, again, I don't think you should compare it too much to First Law, but I don't see you reading First Law and not liking this. That's a high bar, I think, and that might be something that held some people back, I think, with this. But again, if you like that kind of setting, I think, of course, you're going to love this. Werewolves and vampires and necromancy, oh my. I mean, I think that adding anything like if you're the person who wants to get a balanced group, like you're playing D&D and you want to get a balanced party, I think this is like the most balanced party ever. Because you've got, again, I don't want to get too much into what makes some of these characters special, but you got the vampire, you got the werewolf, you've got the necromancer, you've got the cursed knight. You got everybody's got a little bit of something that brings something special and unique to the party, and I like that quite a bit. It made a really good balance. So if you want to see all that kind of balance where you feel like you've got a little bit of everybody's special kind of ability, I think that would be something that should dig. And I'm not sure if this would be the place where I would recommend that you start with Joe Abercrombie, but I don't think it's going to chase you off if you haven't. I think a book like this might be really, really strange to someone who's never read Joe Abercrombie before. Like, really, this is the one that all you guys carry on about? I always say start with the First Law trilogy, the original trilogy. That's definitely the place to really kind of sink your teeth into what kind of writer, what kind of pacing Joe Abercrombie uses. I think that might be a little bit better place for you to start than this. But I don't think it's going to be impossible for you to start here if you want to. The first trilogy's done. Go read that, I think, if you want to start somewhere. But if you just want a group of misfits that, get the job done in the biggest kind of clusterfuck of a way, I mean, I think this is very much your medieval Suicide Squad, and I think it is very much like that, where it is, we don't want to work together. I don't like you. You don't like me. Let's just get the job done so we can get out of here. And over time, they become, the whole found family thing. I think that's a trope that we'll never, ever get tired of as fantasy fans or comic book fans, if that's kind of your speed, like it is mine. As for my final thoughts, look, I've been waiting for Joe to do another adult fantasy series outside of First Law for a while. And I say adult because Shattered Sea, it skewed a little younger, and it wasn't really for me. I wasn't really nuts about it. Thought I did some neat things, but I didn't really like some of them. I don't want to talk about Shattered Sea right now. I've been waiting kind of for this for a minute. So did this exceed expectations? No, it did not exceed expectations, but I got to say that's because, look, First Law is like a top 3 fantasy series all time for me. That's an incredibly high bar to judge this book against. But is this a great setup for a brand new fantasy world? Yes, absolutely. Is he doing those things I love from the First Law? Yes, absolutely. Is he giving me awesome characters with great dialogue? Yes, again, that's what I look for in a Joe Abercrombie book. Am I anxious for book 2? You'd better believe it. I had a blast with this book, and I hope that you guys will too. Before I go, I do want to kind of address something. I got a lot of criticism when I talked about this book when I first got the ARC. People saying that I am only giving it a good review because I got sent an ARC. I think this is kind of crazy. Like, for example, over on Johan's channel, Library of a Viking, I saw lots of thinly veiled shots at me about how, Johan's being honest because he didn't like the book as much as I did. So he's being honest and I'm being dishonest. Guys, I'm always going to be honest on my reviews. I don't care if I get an ARC. I've DNF'd and said not positive things about 2 ARCs I've received this year. getting an ARC. If an author or a publisher wants to stop sending me an ARC because I give a book a not glowing review, so be it. That's not why I'm in this business. I'm not doing this for perks. I'm doing this to be honest. And for me, I'm always being authentic with these things. Yes, we're not all going to have the same opinion on a book. I think that's just a given. It's the most subjective thing in the world, except maybe music, I think. But no, I'm never going to be dishonest with you. I don't care if Joe's one of my favorite authors of all time. I don't care if I got an ARC or not. I'm never going to give a book a great review if I didn't believe it. I think this is a great book. I understand the criticisms of it. They didn't bother me as much as they bothered other people. And I'm hoping that you guys will go into it with the same kind of attitude and don't let anyone kind of make up your mind for you. That's not what reviews are for, in my opinion. So for me, this book was a win. It's not anything I'm saying is going to reinvent the wheel, but I am very excited for this new world and see where it goes, obviously. But again, when you're comparing it to one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, it's got big shoes to fill. I think it's on the right track. It didn't do it in this first book, but this first book is very, very good. I liked it a lot, and I cannot wait to see where this ragtag group goes in book number 2 and eventually number 3. So guys, have you read The Devils? What did you think? I would love to know. Why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments and let me know, and I will talk to you there.